Michael and I had been together for 15 years, dating since high school, right up until the wedding. Then he got cancer. Before he died, he told me he didn't want to have any regrets. He had fallen in love with someone else. He wanted to spend the rest of his remaining time happily with that girl. But after his death, his spirit remained trapped beside me. I could still see him. Michael had late-stage cancer. I was right there when the doctor delivered the verdict, listening to the news in disbelief, relentlessly asking if there were any other possibilities. Michael sat in the chair, expressionless, his head slightly bowed. I couldn't make out his face, nor could I grasp his current state of mind. Michael had lost a lot of weight. He stayed in the hospital for about a week, undergoing various treatments. I squeezed out time every day to be with him. Most often, I would find him staring out the window or staring blankly at his phone. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I knew that anyone facing imminent death couldn't possibly be in good spirits. Suppressing the pain in my heart, I told him about trivial life matters while opening the meal I had brought him. Occasionally, Michael would look at me with eyes full of guilt, seeming to want to speak but stopping short. I didn't know what he was struggling with, but whenever I looked at him, wanting to ask, he would lower his head, as if deliberately avoiding the conversation. His face was always neutral, his expressions far more complex than usual. I found out the truth later. On one of my subsequent visits to the hospital room, I saw the girl named Chloe Davis. Before her, Michael showed a lightness and smile I hadn't seen in days. That relaxed, pleasant expression made me realize, with a sudden pang of clarity, that I hadn't seen him look like that in a very long time. Michael and I met in our youth, got to know each other, and fell in love. This year marked our 15th year together and our 6th year of marriage. We had long since passed the initial heat of passion, settling into a quiet, temperate stability. I could occasionally feel that Michael no longer loved me as fiercely. To be honest, it was mutual. I had also lost my initial youthful adoration for him, but I still held deep affection for him accumulated over the years. I thought we would never reach the sort of miserable ending others did. No cheating, no mistresses, no secret children, no divorce. Yet, I was wrong about him. Right in front of me, in the hospital bed, Michael reached out and laced his fingers with the girl's. My mind went blank. Those eyes, which I used to love so dearly, stared at me with guilt. Yet they held an unsettling determination. Michael was thin and pale, but he was handsome. Even looking ill, he wasn't unattractive. Seeing my lack of reaction, Michael spoke. Ellie, I'm dying. I don't have much time left in this world, and I don't want to leave any regrets. The no regrets he spoke of meant asking me to sanction his affair with the girl beside him, Chloe. The first time I knew of her existence was at Michael's company. Chloe was one of the interns. When I arrived, Michael was in a meeting, so I waited in his office. While waiting, Chloe burst in. We both froze. I immediately sensed something was wrong because the CEO's office was not a place regular employees, let alone a mere intern, could enter freely. But Chloe was exceptionally good at navigating social situations. Her ability to handle issues and adapt quickly was far more mature than that of an average intern. Afterward, Michael explained that Chloe had attended our university. He said she was present when he returned to campus to give a lecture during the school anniversary, and their interaction had been the most extensive among all the students. She had even asked him for an autograph later. He claimed she was just a young woman new to the workplace. A bit clumsy perhaps, but with strong professional skills. I vaguely recalled the incident. Michael and I went to the same university. I should have gone with him to that anniversary event, but I had a last-minute business trip. Now, thinking back, Michael's change of heart might have started right then. I was silent for a moment. Chloe gripped Michael's hand, raising her chin slightly, allowing me to see her tear-filled eyes and dried streaks of tears. She said, Ellie, Michael and I developed feelings for each other a long time ago, but out of consideration for you, neither of us ever crossed the line. If it weren't for Michael, I wouldn't make such an outrageous request. I know being the other woman is despicable, but I love Michael, and I want to spend the rest of his time happily with him. You love him too, so shouldn't you fulfill his wish? Do you really want to see Michael spend his remaining days depressed and leave this world with a deep regret? You've already had the majority of his life. Why won't you let us have this last little bit of time? I looked at the posturing Chloe and then at Michael. who remained silently complicit. A strange sense of alienation and absurdity welled up in my heart. For a moment, I wondered if the passionate romance of our youth had just been my own over-idealization and fantasy. Perhaps the Michael who once loved me so deeply had never truly existed. I clenched my fist tightly. The sharp pain in my palm brought my sanity rushing back. I forced myself to calm down and asked, "So, what exactly do you two want?" "For me to divorce him, so you can be together." Chloe started to speak, but the hand she held, intertwined with Michael's, was squeezed. She let out a small gasp of pain. She glared playfully at Michael, but he didn't coddle her as usual. She instantly knew this was not the time for theatrics. Chloe was very smart, especially when reading a man's mood, which was likely how she managed to capture Michael's heart so quickly. Michael stopped avoiding my gaze and stared directly at me. He said seriously, "But I've fallen in love with someone else." Ellie. I suddenly felt as though I had never truly known him. In 15 years, the Michael I remembered would never have said something so irresponsible, would never have deliberately hurt me, and certainly would never have allowed this hard-won relationship to end in such a humiliating spectacle. In our youth, we overcame so many obstacles just to finally break through all barriers, embrace each other openly, and receive everyone's blessing. I couldn't accept that the man with whom I shared so many beautiful memories could be undone by time and a change of heart, ultimately becoming no different from any ordinary man his age. If he was no different from anyone else, what was the point of all my years of emotion and investment? I didn't say much else, just slowly asked one question. "Michael, do you remember the promise you made me?" Michael's eyes flickered before settling into a gray void. For a fleeting second, I actually thought he still loved me and was putting on a show to spare me the grief after his inevitable death. But when I saw the look he gave Chloe, I knew that was just a melodramatic fantasy. The look he gave Chloe was not significantly different from the look he once gave me, because I knew what it looked like when he loved me. I could tell when he held affection for someone else. Before I left, I dropped one last statement. "Michael, I won't stop you from being together, but I will not divorce you. You need to keep the promise you made me." The promise. I left the hospital room and walked the corridor. The smell of disinfectant vaguely brought back old memories. It was when we were very young. Michael had been drinking for business until his stomach bled. I don't know what the investor said, but Michael dragged his sick body up and beat the man. I was swamped at the office and lost my mind when the hospital called. When I rushed to the hospital, he was sitting awkwardly on the bed. Seeing me, he forced a smile, stretching the wound on his lip to look relaxed. I saw his hands trembling beneath the blanket, tears stinging my eyes. I asked him what happened. How old was he? Why did he get into a fight? Especially with an investor. Who would dare cooperate with him now? Michael grinned, wiping away my tears. He just told me not to worry. As I was applying medicine to his wounds, he suddenly stopped his incessant chatter and pulled out a small, exquisitely wrapped box from his pocket. Inside was a necklace. I laughed, saying, "I thought it was a pair of wedding rings. I thought you were going to propose." Michael said it wasn't the right time. Not until he could afford to marry me grandly. He had bought that necklace immediately after earning his first substantial sum of money. As he fastened it around my neck, he hugged me hard from behind, burying his face in my neck. He whispered, "Ellie, I will be good to you for the rest of my life." I asked, "What if you fall in love with someone else in the future? People say no relationship lasts forever. If I ever betray you, I will give you every penny of my assets, leave with nothing, and go beg on the streets, freezing or starving to death." In the end, he was the one who let go first. He was dying, so leaving with nothing caused him no harm. I felt a sense of resentment, though I wasn't sure what I resented, because if I were asked how much I liked him now, the answer wouldn't be much. That day after I left, my friend Jess sent me a screenshot and several question marks. The screenshot was Chloe's post on social media, a picture of clasped hands. The caption read, "After countless struggles and overcoming obstacles, I am finally with the man I love most. Michael, I will walk through this toughest time with you." Michael had liked the post below. Reading that, I felt a strange sense of irony, as those words could have equally applied to Michael and me. Back then, our love was also intense and passionate, attracting disapproval and skepticism from everyone who knew us. The disparity in our family backgrounds was too great. Michael typically presented a reserved, cold image to others. But on our wedding day, standing before my parents and our relatives and friends, he proudly declared that determination triumphs over circumstances, and he would ensure everyone acknowledged him and approved of my decision. However, in private, he wept uncontrollably in front of me. He said the fleeting moment of triumph couldn't compensate for the weeks of unfair treatment I had endured. He was bitterly resentful. He vowed to spend the rest of his life proving to every single skeptic that my choice was correct. My judgment was sound, and everything about me was beyond reproach. But he broke his promise. When the affection vanished, he vanished too. Jess Miller was a mutual friend of Michael and me. Strictly speaking, she was Michael's friend. They grew up in the same neighborhood in high school, coming from similar backgrounds. The small group of friends they formed had remained tight ever since. I got to know them through Michael, and my relationship with them was very warm. Jess, what is the meaning of this? What's going on with you and Michael? What's the deal with this girl? Isn't she an intern at his company? Michael asked me to mentor her, and now she posts this disgusting crap. I'm certainly not mentoring her. I didn't reply immediately, and Jess rapidly sent several more messages. I gave her a brief explanation. There was a long silence on her end. She was probably shocked or unsure how to react. After all, though Jess and I were close, her friendship with Michael, having grown up together, was fundamentally different. I sighed, exiting the chat. But then Jess caused a scene in our joint friend group chat. We had a group chat of 8 people. Only 3 of us were women. Me, Jess, and Michael's younger sister, Sarah. The rest were men. Jess sent over a dozen messages, all of them ing Michael and cursing him out. Jess, you bastard. I'm calling our 20 years of friendship a waste. I'd rather have been blind than friends with a lowlife like you. Jess, do you remember how poor you were back then? Would you have achieved what you have now without Ellie's father? You're a man who rose up because of his wife. What right do you have to cheat and find someone younger and prettier? Jess, how are you any different from your deadbeat father? Do you remember who took you home and patched you up after you beat him up like a dog? Did your conscience get dissolved and eaten with the liquor at those parties? You make money and immediately start cheating. Don't you know how you got that money? Jess, your heart is rotten. You're just like every man in that alleyway. Michael, you should have died the day you married Ellie, instead of letting us watch you rot away. You rotten bastard. You'll die of a venereal disease sooner or later. They still didn't know about Michael's illness. Having been Michael's friend for over 20 years, Jess knew exactly how to inflict the most pain. Listening to her voice messages, I felt no satisfaction, because she didn't know she was cursing a dying man. Perhaps her rant today was just an outburst of momentary anger, but when she learned the truth, she might regret it and even secretly blame herself. I didn't want Jess to carry that kind of guilt. The others came out, bewildered, trying to mediate, and I also told Jess to stop. After her tirade, Jess left the group. I was stunned. Then I recalled that Jess' own father had cheated, and along with his mistress, he had driven her mother to death. She hated men like that above all else. Yet, Michael had been the older brother she idolized since childhood. When I first met her, she clearly didn't like me, but she would still quietly follow me when Michael wasn't around, fulfilling his request to take care of me. She would watch me get safely into my car to go home before walking back down that dark alley, walking back to her bleak, sunless home. I received many hesitant inquiries. The small group chat fell silent after Jess left, and Michael never appeared. So I saw no need to explain anything. It wasn't my mess to clean up. I carefully explained Michael's condition to Jess. I felt I shouldn't have to do this, since she was primarily on Michael's side. I should have cut ties with her after his actions. Jess, so, are you choosing to understand him because of that? I said no. Jess sent a voice message. No excuse justifies his cheating. Did this idea only surface when he was about to die? It was there long ago. Cheating isn't just the act. The mere thought counts. Ellie, you are too good to accept a scoundrel. The fact that he's dying isn't an excuse for us to overlook the damage done to you. A man only reveals his true self when faced with a difficult choice. He didn't suddenly become rotten. We just never noticed. Jess' voice was tearful, which brought a lump to my own throat. Her mother died young. Her father ignored her. and there was no place for her at home. No one cared about her. Michael had once told me that the first time he saw the little girl, she was filthy and pitifully sheltering from the rain beneath an eave that barely offered cover. Her house was nearby, but she couldn't return. She had just argued with and shoved her stepmother. Going back meant a beating. She stubbornly remained in the rain. Michael wasn't the type to interfere, but his mother was. After they became acquainted, Jess spent most of her time at friends' houses. Michael, smart and stable since childhood, was an indispensable guide in her growth. She couldn't accept that the man she had idolized since childhood was fundamentally as rotten as her father. I also left the group chat. Sarah Reynolds came running to ask me what was going on. Michael and Sarah were 12 years apart. Michael had always acted as a father figure in her life. After I came along, she clung to me and we had a great relationship. I copied and pasted what I told Jess and sent it to her. I told her to ask her brother the rest. Sarah didn't reply. I only responded to a few close friends among the others who inquired. I often learned about their lives through other people. They were either living together, watching movies, or watching sunrises and sunsets. In every photo, Michael's face was pale, but filled with smiles. Jess even sent me a screenshot once. It was from Chloe, a picture of a 7-person group chat. The caption was, "Successfully infiltrated the inner circle of my love." Clearly, Michael had added Chloe to his circle of friends. Jess furiously cursed the traitors and said she was going to delete and break up with all of them. She said, sounding lonely and lost, "It's different after all. Gender is different. The perspective on the issue is different. Even after so many years of friendship, men might think it's nothing. Perhaps they suffered trauma from their father's infidelity as children. But later in life, they might, in some moment, understand their fathers, becoming their fathers. But women remember the trauma forever, because they are not the beneficiaries." I hadn't expected Michael's death to come so quickly. I managed the funeral alone, while also juggling company matters and dealing with the lawyer Michael had hired regarding his estate. I was completely overwhelmed. Yet Chloe brazenly showed up at the funeral, weeping more pitifully than anyone. Those around who knew the situation watched her mourn dramatically, occasionally glancing at my expression. Sarah kept crying and leaning close to me, asking what we should do. I watched Chloe's performance coldly. When she was exhausted from weeping, I had the security guards throw her out. Chloe suddenly looked up at me. "Eleanor Hayes, what right do you have to kick me out? I was the person Michael cared about most before he died. Don't I even deserve to see him one last time? You call yourself Michael's wife, but he's dead and you haven't shed a single tear. You cold-blooded woman." She didn't know that the man she claimed to love most was standing right beside her, watching her silently, his eyes holding a hint of pity, perhaps prompted by Chloe's words. He looked at me, seeing that I truly hadn't cried. He frowned. I first saw Michael on the night of his death. I was sitting on the bed in the guest room, taking a short nap. In my sleep, I felt someone watching me, so I opened my eyes and saw Michael standing blankly at the foot of my bed. I couldn't help but scream. He didn't react, his eyes still holding a bewildered look. I tried to touch him but couldn't feel his body. I tried pinching my arm. The pain confirmed this wasn't a dream. I quickly accepted the fact that Michael had become a ghost and would remain attached to me. However, he seemed completely unaware of his surroundings, his expression confused. It wasn't until the next morning that he moved, issuing a series of confused questions. I didn't let him know I could see him. Perhaps I felt it was unnecessary, or perhaps I wanted to know what he would do when he thought I wasn't watching. I retorted, "Didn't I let you see him one last time? Weren't you by Michael's side until the moment he died? You've seen the coffin. You've cried at the grave. Michael isn't here anymore. So, what are you staying for? You know Michael is still legally my husband, and I am his wife. So, what status gives you the right to stand here and question me? The only reason I didn't throw you out immediately was to give you the courtesy of finishing your dramatic performance of this beautiful, separated by death love story." I expressionlessly ordered the security guards to throw her out, literally throw her out. Michael stood nearby, trying to intervene, but his hand passed straight through Chloe's body. Uselessly. He could only direct a somewhat resentful look at me. He said, "Was that necessary?" I ignored him. Sarah, who had initially asked me what to do, said with some reluctance, "Ellie, Isn't that too harsh? She was the woman your brother cared about most before he died, right? I looked meaningfully at the young woman I had raised since she was little, who was now an adult. The moment Sarah met my gaze, she couldn't speak another word, but the struggle remained visible in her eyes. I couldn't quite define the emotion in my heart, but coldness certainly played a part. After all, she was the girl I had personally guided and raised. Yet, in this situation, where I was clearly the injured party, she was still taking the opposing side. I couldn't say she was entirely wrong, as Michael was her biological brother. My parents eventually found out about Michael's infidelity before his death. Their fury had nowhere to vent. They stayed home, cursing Michael for his despicable actions. And eventually, they turned on me, saying my judgment was flawed, insisting I shouldn't have married him in the first place even though they had eventually accepted Michael. In fact, our relationship had always been scrutinized by others from the start. While they were shouting curses, Michael's spirit hovered around me, awkwardly listening to everything. He looked like he wanted to leave but couldn't stray from my side. If it weren't for respecting the dead, my father might have already been cursing at Michael's grave. I spent a long time soothing them to prevent their anger from escalating, as I didn't want the stress to harm their health. After the funeral, I began processing Michael's estate. He had left a portion of his assets to Sarah, and the vast majority was transferred to my name. On the surface, he had kept his promise. If he stopped loving me, he would transfer all his assets to me, leaving himself penniless and out on the street. Since he was about to die, this carried no detriment for him. After all, he couldn't take money to the grave. I looked at the documents the lawyer provided, sneering, and pointed out a flaw. I recall Michael owned over a dozen properties in this area. They are neither here nor in his sister's portion. Where did they go? Michael, standing next to me, visibly widened his eyes. The lawyer adjusted her glasses but remained silent. The answer was obvious. Chloe. He had left an inheritance for Chloe, too. I intended to reclaim those assets. I didn't take back what he left Sarah, out of consideration for my years of affection for her. But Chloe, a mistress. Michael seemed to grasp my intentions. He followed me, nagging incessantly. I know you won't let Chloe off the hook after I'm gone. Even if she didn't make any mistakes at my company, you'd fire her. Her family is struggling, and she needs the money. Please, just for the sake of our years together, let her go. I completely ignored Michael's pleas, explaining everything to the lawyer, laying out the evidence of Michael's infidelity. I filed a lawsuit to reclaim the assets. Seeing that he couldn't sway me, Michael grew frantic. He roared at me. Eleanor Hayes, are you really that greedy? I left the majority of my estate to you. What I left Chloe was so little. What more could you possibly want? What more did I want? You, Michael, were the one who promised to transfer all your assets to my name. You were the one who changed your mind first, cheated first, and broke your promise first. I was merely helping you fulfill your own words. You didn't show me any decency, so why should I show you any? I listened carefully as the lawyer analyzed the situation. My initial refusal to divorce Michael was specifically for this reason. I knew he would officially leave everything to me, but he would surely have made private arrangements, as long as Michael and I remained married. Even if Chloe received a massive inheritance, I could still ensure she ended up empty-handed. The lawsuit drove two people mad. Chloe and Michael both watched helplessly as the things they had given or received, the tokens of their supposed love, were seized by the person standing in the way of their romance, and they were powerless to stop it. Guarded by Jess and my driver, I got into the car. As the car started, Chloe rushed to the hood, utterly reckless, blocking our path. She hammered on the car door, looking somewhat manic. After all, Michael had left her assets worth hundreds of millions. I glanced at the unseen ghost beside me and suddenly remembered some interesting things I had uncovered. A faint smile touched my lips. I pushed the car door open and stepped out. I slowly walked up to Chloe, savoring her distress. "Wanna talk?" I took her to a restaurant and reserved a private room. Chloe watched me with constant vigilance, as if I might do something terrible to her. It was laughable. She dared to block my car, yet she appeared timid when joining me. "What do you want to talk about?" As soon as she sat down, Chloe spoke impatiently. I smiled. "Why are you so upset that I took the inheritance? I thought you and Michael weren't together for the money. Would these things even matter to you? Chloe's expression froze. She quickly replied, "That was the last thing Michael left me before he died. Of course. I want to keep it. It wasn't Michael's to give. Michael and I were husband and wife. Those were our communal assets. What he gave you was also mine. That was all earned by Michael's hard work. You just benefited from being married to him. Otherwise, how could a woman like you earn so much money in a lifetime?" I laughed out loud. Even Michael's expression beside me changed. Chloe looked confused. She was still young and could hide some emotions, but not all of them. I declared, "Everything Michael owns today was earned by both of us fighting for it. Without me, there would be no him. And certainly no image of a successful man in your eyes. If it hadn't been for me, he would have rotted away in the mud." Michael looked like he was remembering something, his expression distant. Yes, without me, Michael truly would have rotted away in the mud. I was the one who stopped him from killing his father. I was the one who taught him how to escape that suffocating childhood home. When his father was dragging him down, making his life hell, I pulled him out, guiding him to shore where he could see the sunlight. I was the person in this world who had the most right to scorn him. I said, if he hadn't achieved the status, you wouldn't have looked at him. I was the one who presented him to you. Chloe instinctively retorted, "I love Michael. I love his personal charm, not his money. Stop pretending. He's dead. You'll never get his inheritance. Why don't you just come clean with me? I might let you walk away unscathed." I threw several photos onto the table. They were all pictures of Chloe with other men. Most of the men were older, seeming to be successful businessmen. Chloe may have just graduated from college, but her behavior was incredibly seasoned. For years, she had targeted older men, manufacturing encounters, spending time with them, having affairs, putting on a show, and walking away with a hefty reward. In short, she was a professional mistress. But she wasn't content to be an ordinary one. She had to act like she loved them to extort greater profits and benefits. If she was lucky, a man might even divorce his wife and marry her, making her a wealthy lady. This time, she had clearly targeted Michael. Her focus on Michael was certainly deeper than her previous targets. Given that Michael was both younger and handsome, the quality was definitely better than her previous conquests. I knew Michael had seen those photos. His face seemed even paler now. He looked at Chloe in disbelief. He couldn't believe that the true love he had betrayed me for was nothing but a complete fabrication orchestrated by Chloe. Perhaps realizing there was truly no need to keep up the pretense, Chloe actually laughed. She spat a curse word. I knew there would be no payoff, so I shouldn't have wasted my time on this man. I didn't earn a penny, and I wasted my effort. Chloe looked at me, her soft, innocent face now displaying a stark, inappropriate malice. "Eleanor Hayes, your methods are effective. But so what? Your husband didn't love you. You are a failure in life." Chloe seemed overly proud, as if Michael choosing her over me was something worth flaunting. In her eyes, it symbolized victory. I didn't know if she genuinely believed that, or if she was simply seeking spiritual victory now that she was cornered. Then she added, "I looked into you, Eleanor. You've lived a comfortable life since childhood. You are your parents' only daughter, so you never had to worry about money. But I am different from you. If I didn't do this, my parents would have driven me to my death." She looked at me with immense resentment. "Without your parents, you are nothing. You have no right to look at me like I'm something dirty. Everything you have, was it not earned by your father or your husband? If you were in my shoes, in my family situation, you wouldn't be doing any better than me." And so, I replied, "Did I create your circumstances? Am I supposed to take responsibility for your poverty just because I am wealthy?" Seeing Michael's confused expression, I knew he understood everything. There was no need to stay. Chloe was wrong about one thing. Everything I had now, I had earned myself. My father had always been strict with me growing up. Part of the reason I insisted on being with Michael was to defy him. He constantly imposed his ideas on me, disregarding my own desires. I wanted to escape. Choosing Michael was one way I acted against his control, but I genuinely liked him, too. Still, my unwavering choice to be with him was always layered with a personal objective. After I started dating Michael, my father froze all my assets, hoping to pressure me into submission by forcing me to experience hardship. We were both poor then, huddling together in a rundown rental. During the day, we both hustled, pursuing our respective careers. I wanted to prove to my father that, even without his control, I could still make the right choices, choices I genuinely wanted. That period was rife with setbacks, but I gritted my teeth, seeking investment and negotiating partnerships. I handled everything personally. My current company is the success I built during that time, which eventually silenced my father. On the way back, a ghost consistently trailed me, never too far behind. Michael seemed to be struggling to recover from the truths I had revealed, yet his spirit involuntarily followed me as I drove away. I found his presence irritating. I wondered when he would finally disappear and go to his hell. I'm sorry. As we drove, a voice suddenly reached me. It was Michael's apology. I stared straight ahead, pretending to be oblivious. In reality, he hadn't apologized when he first thought about betraying me, nor when he chose Chloe. He only apologized now, when the truth was exposed and he realized he had been deceived. If Chloe hadn't been a fraud, but merely a genuine, ordinary college graduate who fell for him, he wouldn't have felt guilty, and he wouldn't have thought my actions were wrong. He would have viewed my seizure of her inheritance as malicious, cruel, selfish, and greedy. I seriously listened to the lawyer's analysis, explaining everything clearly, and outlined my demands to retrieve the estate. Michael looked agitated, hovering near me and trying to interrupt my thought process. I know I messed up, Ellie, but can you just forgive me? You don't know what I went through. Facing death like that. I pressed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. Don't overthink it, he whispered. To my surprise, a pair of large hands reached out and rested on my head. I froze. Michael also froze. But then I realized that whenever I showed signs of a headache when we were together, Michael would drop whatever he was doing and massage me to ease the pain. He had even specifically taken lessons at a massage parlor for this skill. What happened now was likely just a subconscious reaction. I closed my eyes and rested, deliberately avoiding looking at him. Thus, I missed the fact that he watched me the entire way home. After a long day of dealing with legal matters, I was exhausted. I skipped dinner and went straight to bed. Why aren't you eating? Michael spoke again, moving closer to me. I was too sleepy, so I just waved my hand dismissively in his direction. Michael was startled, momentarily wondering if Eleanor could see him. But then, I fell completely asleep. Michael tried to adjust my sleeping position, tried to pull the blanket over me, but his hands passed right through my body. He couldn't touch me anymore. This realization darkened his eyes slightly. He hovered lightly by the bed, staring blankly at Eleanor all night. My biological clock woke me up at 6. Dazed, I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth and wash my face. Looking up, I saw Michael in the mirror. I ignored him, quickly finished my routine, and went to the study. While printing documents, Michael appeared beside me without warning. I jumped, startled, and bumped into the desk. Watch out. Michael reached out to grab me. A futile gesture. Something crashed to the floor. I held my bruised hip, rubbing it until the pain subsided, before getting up to see what had broken. As I walked around the desk, I glanced at Michael and paused. I noticed that a part of his body seemed to be dissolving. He also seemed to notice the change in himself, looking at me with confusion. Our eyes met briefly in the air, but I quickly looked away, focusing on the floor. It was a broken picture frame containing a photo of Michael and me. The picture was taken when we were young. It was the first time we rode a Ferris wheel. In the car, we shared a kiss, fulfilling the romantic legend that couples who kiss on a Ferris wheel will never separate. The photo captured us with the starry sky as a backdrop. This photo had once been Michael's favorite, his phone background, his social media banner, his profile picture on various apps. All featured this photo. I didn't know when he had finally changed it. I crouched down. The outer glass frame was shattered, and the picture inside was scratched. I swept away the shards of glass and picked up the photograph. We both realized, simultaneously, part of his obsession. Michael pursed his lips, watching me without a word. The answer wasn't surprising. Michael and I had been together for many years. Even if he had changed his mind now, the past was real. I still held a place in his heart. I took a lighter from the drawer, ignited the photo, and dropped it into the ashtray. Watching it burn to ash, Michael's figure became significantly more transparent. This confirmed both our suspicions. Michael slowly reached out. The photo, now burned to ash, restored itself and landed in his hand. His gaze fixed on the picture, lingering on it, his fingers constantly tracing it. A flash of nostalgia and affection crossed his eyes. But then he remembered that the photo now in his hand had been ruthlessly burned by Eleanor. The faint smile on his lips vanished. He glanced at Eleanor, who continued working, completely unconcerned. He knew he had no grounds to blame her. It was his choice. He was the one who let go first. Eleanor had no obligation to cling to their relics or the possessions of a husband who betrayed her. Pain flashed in Michael's eyes, realizing that objects related to Michael's past might hold his obsession. I had the entire house cleared of our shared belongings. I spent my own time cleaning out a few important rooms. I found our high school graduation photo. Long ago, we would sit side by side on the sofa, counting up the small, trivial things that had happened to our classmates. We could talk about these things for an entire afternoon, a whole day. At the time, I didn't feel it was a waste of time, but now, I certainly wouldn't be willing to do it. I had forgotten how long it had been since we sat together peacefully, discussing the day's mundane events. Even when he was extremely busy, he would find ways to text me, video call me, and had even perfected the skill of multitasking, handling work while responding to me. After his change of heart, he became even busier and lost that ability. Michael understood why everyone in the villa was taking action. He didn't know Eleanor could see him. He thought she hated him and wanted to completely erase him from her world. That was a normal reaction. But watching their shared past being systematically dismantled still filled Michael with sadness. He sat cross-legged next to Eleanor. He watched her flip through old photo albums, and he leaned in to look, too. Why are you stopping here for so long? Who do you see? What do you remember? Michael smiled when he saw one particular photo. Remember, we got caught dating in high school. The teacher asked you to call your parents, but you didn't want to. You told me I knew more people, so I should find someone to pretend to be your dad. But as soon as my friend arrived at the office, he ran straight into your actual dad. I grabbed you and we ran. Jess helped us cause a distraction, but we got caught anyway. Your dad chewed me out thoroughly. He finished scolding me, but he forgot to scold you. He treated you like a treasure, wanting to stuff you in his pocket so I couldn't even look at you. Back then, I was thinking, good thing I drew the fire so he didn't scold you. Otherwise, with how sharp-tongued he is, you would have lost face. Do you remember what your dad used to call me? He used to say. Michael's voice stopped abruptly, and the smile on his lips flattened. He suddenly realized that everything my father had said to him had come true. Even when my parents accepted him, it was merely acceptance. They still disliked him. My father, whose words were the most hurtful, had said everything he could think of to break us up. He called Michael a poor kid trying to climb the ladder by marrying a rich girl. He said Michael's father was a bad example, and Michael wouldn't turn out well. He even said Michael was only good to me because I was the only person who treated him well. And once he became successful, I might not be his only one. Back then, everyone, including me, thought my father's words were excessive, because no one knew better than I how much Michael hated his father. The cheating, the domestic violence, the gambling. His father embodied the worst of male vice. And Michael, from a young age, had to protect his frail mother and young sister from him. The person in the world who hated his father the most was Michael himself. I thought then that my father should not have used such hurtful words. But now, Michael himself had cheated, following the path of the man he hated most. I didn't know whether to lament the power of genetics or to conclude that he had never truly escaped the influence of his toxic family. I only knew that I hadn't wronged him, but he had wronged me, and I didn't need to pity his alleged struggles. Michael repeated the apology. My response was to burn the photo he had just spoken a phone by one. I pulled out every photograph related to him right under his nose. I burned them all. He looked anxious, watching me helplessly. He reached out for the flames, but only ended up holding the ashes of the photographs. Michael stared blankly at the ashes in his hand. These were what I had given him. They only reached his hands because I had discarded them. I cleared out every item related to Michael that I could find in the house. Items that could be sold were sold. Those that couldn't were donated. Those that couldn't be donated were burned. Michael stood on the balcony beside me, silently watching the servants downstairs reduce the objects to ash. Occasionally, black specks drifted up, and he couldn't help but reach out, grasping one memory after another. When I took a break, standing on the balcony, I could see him sitting by the fire, picking up and piecing together every trace of the past. He watched silently for an entire day and night. This villa was bought with Michael's first major contract and served as our marital home. Though it might not compare to our other properties, it held a special meaning for us. And for years, we both considered it our home. I purged all memories of us from the villa, renovating the entire space according to my personal taste. I moved out of the villa. Michael's spirit followed me. As he left behind the past he had painstakingly reconstructed. His expression grew paler. He was so translucent he looked like a gust of wind, capable of disappearing at any moment. But he didn't disappear. Do you hate me that much? Michael sat next to me, staring at an unseen spot, mumbling, "Hate." I thought about it. Not quite. I reflected carefully. Over the years, the initial love and passion had long since been diluted by the myriad demands of daily life. Occasionally, I encountered men in my career who made my heart flutter for a few seconds, but I always remembered that I was a married woman. I always remembered the bond with Michael and the difficult years we had navigated together. Even if the romantic love was gone, other feelings remained, preventing me from doing anything that would betray him or our marriage. I didn't think I was a particularly devoted person, but I was at least conscientious. Yet, the word marriage only constrained me, not him. The thought of me rushing around for him in the hospital, worrying about his health and feeling despair at his cruel fate amidst my own hectic work schedule. And all the while, he was considering how to tell me about choosing someone else. It made me sick. Perhaps the moment he got sick, he felt a sense of relief, because it meant he no longer had to suppress himself. He could make the final free choice of his life, even if that choice brought criticism and hurt the wife who had been with him for over a decade. He could use his impending death as an excuse. He didn't want regrets. He didn't want to endure anymore. He didn't want to be unhappy. All the wrongs become forcibly right when a person is about to die. My voice became irrelevant. I had no doubt that even if Michael hadn't gotten cancer, even if he wasn't dying, he would still, one day, abruptly tell me he wanted a divorce, that he regretted things. His excuse would probably still be wanting no regrets, wanting to live for himself during his short life. It was just a matter of time. He was dying before he could finalize his choices, pave the way for his infidelity, or find another plausible reason to justify his betrayal and comfort himself. And all I felt was that his presence was an eyesore, and I wanted him gone. That was all. Ellie, do you still love me? We were together for so many years, yet I often felt that you didn't love me. I found his words ridiculous. I was with him for 16 years. How many 16-year periods does one person have in a lifetime? Yet, he said he couldn't feel my love. Did he think I had to cry hysterically for days after his departure, suffer emotional breakdowns, sleep in the hospital, and be constantly thinking about dying with him, for it to count as love? Michael suddenly gave a self-deprecating laugh. Maybe I'm truly too messed up. So messed up I don't even know what love is. I desperately wanted someone to always love me, completely. When I was young, I did so much for you. I thought, I don't need you to know. You don't have to know. My love is enough. So, I always did things secretly, often through others. I thought I wasn't good enough to appear before you, not even worthy of speaking to you. I didn't want to bring my contamination to you. Michael pulled out a stack of love letters from his pocket. I caught a glimpse. Those were the ones I had carefully stored in my drawer. On the night we married, he gave me the last love letter. The final sentence corresponded to the first sentence in the very first letter he sent me in his youth. It felt like our relationship had finally reached a full stop, achieving a positive outcome. But years later, today marked the true end of our relationship. In a novel, it would be an absolute tragedy. To prevent me from discovering he wrote the letters. He even changed his handwriting back then. It was meticulously neat, completely different from his usual scribbles. The letters weren't well-written or lengthy. At first, I didn't even read them, thinking I'd return them when someone claimed ownership. But no one ever came to claim them. I was always curious, because during high school, everyone who wrote me a letter would ask for my answer. But this person never did. The letters weren't large, so I kept them in my desk drawer. At some point, the second, third, and fourth letters arrived, all unclaimed and unsigned. The stack started taking up space, so I decided to throw them away. I put them in a bag, but the bag disappeared when I returned from gym class. Since nothing else was missing, I didn't worry about it. I later learned Michael had heard me say the letters were taking up space and that I wanted to throw them away. So he secretly retrieved them. Responding to my father's arrangements, I transferred to Michael's class in sophomore year. At first, I didn't notice him because he rarely attended school. He was the most mysterious person in the class. Students said Michael came from a poor family. His father was a scoundrel, and he had to take care of his sick mother and younger sister. He often had to skip classes to work for money. Because of his special circumstances, the homeroom teacher turned a blind eye and sometimes tutored him privately. For a period, the streetlights on my way home were broken. After evening self-study, the road was pitch black. I called my dad from school, asking if he could pick me up. But both my parents were busy and could only arrange for someone to drop by and collect me. For a few days, the person who promised to pick me up didn't show, and I had to walk home in the dark. I mentioned this casually while talking to someone at school, hoping to find someone to walk with, but I didn't have any luck. But that night, walking home, I saw someone installing lights. As I got closer, I realized it was Michael. We both froze. I hadn't expected him to be there, and he hadn't expected self-study to end early. When I asked, he could only explain that it was a side job. I nodded. I had heard he was poor and had to balance school and work. I was also happy that the road would finally have light, so I wouldn't have to walk in darkness anymore. The original streetlights remained broken, but Michael installed several new lamps along the route. They were removed only later. When the municipal workers finally fixed the old streetlights, Michael rubbed the scar on his wrist. Something flashed across his eyes. After we got married, I became greedy. I wanted more of your love, your wholehearted love. But I knew that was difficult with you because you had so many other important things in your life. You often missed our anniversaries. I constantly felt like my heart had a hole in it, and no amount of attention from others could fill it. I wanted your complete love, your undivided attention. Otherwise, I felt like you could abandon me at any moment, like I was insignificant to you. Then I met Chloe. I felt her 100% devotion to me. I thought I had found the person who could fill the void in my heart. I thought I could leave without regrets. But in the end, it was just a deception. The love I craved could be faked. And in chasing it, I lost everything I had. Looking back, I realize I am no different from my father. His blood flows in me. I have inherited him. I have become a new version of him, a continuation of his legacy. I suddenly understood a little. Michael had never escaped his family's influence. His mother loved his father wholeheartedly. Despite the domestic violence and infidelity, she still bore him a second child. While she was a good and kind mother to her children, she also didn't know how to raise them. She just wanted to use her children to tie down her wayward husband. Michael loved his mother, but he also resented her. Yet, he had inherited his mother's mentality. He wanted to find that absolute love. He fell for me, but I couldn't give him that extreme, all-consuming love. Love taken to the extreme is pathological, and few people in the world can offer it. He thought Chloe, who was ostensibly focused entirely on him, was the love he was looking for, but he didn't realize that love could be disguised. In his quest, he ended up becoming his childhood nightmare as father. He cheated, bringing his mistress before me, just like in his childhood, when his father brought his mistress home, right in front of his mother, who then broke down. His actions were a desperate attempt to see his mother's reflection in me. It was his final attempt to see if I truly loved him. But sadly, I didn't lose control, and he didn't turn back. It was a cycle, a bond he could never break free from in his lifetime. That's why he was afraid of having children. I originally thought he simply didn't like kids. Now I realize he was terrified. Michael wept. His face was etched with regret. The things he hadn't grasped in life, he understood in death. But it was too late. He hadn't realized his own psychological issues, that the roots of everything had been planted in his childhood. He acted rashly and lost everything. I looked out the window, and tears pricked my own eyes. I felt a slight pang of guilt. I knew I was also a victim, and his predicament was entirely his own fault. Failed to be responsible for himself or others. But the feelings we shared for so many years were real. Our memories contained more happiness than sorrow. to end in such a humiliating state. I, too, felt regretful. I eliminated most of the things related to Michael, but he still hadn't vanished. He followed me closely, clinging to these last moments, because he didn't know when he would disappear either. Sarah came to find me. After a meeting, I saw her in my office. I was slightly surprised. What's wrong? Since Michael's death, we had only spoken through text. Her sudden appearance suggested it might not be a good thing. Sarah avoided my gaze. She was rather introverted. She looked like she was summoning all her courage. Ellie, the inheritance my brother left me. Did you take it? At those words, I saw Michael's face completely change. The inheritance Michael left Sarah was indeed in my possession, but I hadn't taken it. Michael had handed it over to me. He knew his sister's nature. Introverted, timid, and soft-spoken as he prey. For this very reason, it wasn't safe for her, at her age, to hold a massive fortune. He clearly didn't think she could protect it. Giving the inheritance to me was a plan for Sarah's future. That money was enough for her to live comfortably for several lifetimes. I would regularly give her a portion, or she could ask me for it, and I would always give it to her. Michael knew I wouldn't take my anger out on Sarah, as she was like a child to me, and I wouldn't stoop to stealing from a girl who had lost her parents and brother. I didn't need that small inheritance. It is with me. Your brother entrusted it to me. Why? Sarah looked at me, then nervously looked away. Could you give it back to me? Michael was practically trying to leap up and clamp her mouth shut. She had no idea what she was saying. That one sentence effectively drew a line between us, signaling her suspicion toward me. I looked at the furious Michael, then at the timid but determined Sarah. Her eyes were much like her brother's expressive. It was easy to tell what she was thinking. After a moment, I gave a light laugh and readily agreed. Just as she let out a sigh of relief, I asked, "Who told you to come and ask me for it?" Chloe Davis. Sarah answered instinctively. Only after answering did she realize her mistake. She looked at me fearfully. She opened her mouth, seemingly wanting to apologize, but I cut her off. So you're still in contact with her? I understand. I will contact the lawyer shortly and have your portion of the inheritance returned to you entirely. If there's nothing else, please leave. I'm busy and cannot entertain you. Sarah looked somewhat hurt, gazing at me as if she wanted to speak. She wasn't used to me rushing her off. She seemed shocked by my words. Though the young woman's life had been difficult since childhood, her brother had shielded her from most storms, leaving only slight breezes to touch her. She was still too innocent, too protected. She didn't realize that her actions amounted to siding against me, effectively severing our bond. Her path was her own to walk. I didn't need to be her life mentor anymore. Her brother was dead. Michael, clinging to me, constantly and diligently tried to justify and plead for his sister, even though he believed I couldn't see him. But he held a sliver of hope that I might somehow hear or see him. I might have been imagining it, but Michael looked even more transparent. Perhaps his sister was also a part of his obsession, and my unwitting severance of that relationship was dissolving him further. Michael slowly resigned himself. He stood silently by the floor-to-ceiling window. Perhaps he was wondering why Sarah had been so foolish. Jess texted me, asking if Sarah had done something wrong. Jess. She texted me, asking me to find out if you were angry with her. Jess. You know how timid she is. Like a rabbit. She wouldn't dare ask you herself. I told her the truth. She was silent again for a while. Jess. Idiot. Jess. Did you block our friends? They reached out to me and explained that the group chat was an accident, that Michael added her, and they never said a word in it. Jess. They apparently fought with Michael, too. You know, you and Michael are equally important to us. Without you, none of us would have gotten out of that hellhole. Jess. They want to apologize to you, but they're afraid of upsetting you by showing up suddenly. I'm not pleading their case. I'm just passing on the message. Michael was their lifelong protector, but I was the one who led them out of the mire. It was fair to say that Michael and everyone around him owed me a debt of gratitude. My father once remarked that I had good judgment. I knew how to utilize people, and I knew how to win hearts. I would help, but only those who were useful to me and had a conscience. These types of people, given the slightest favor, would try their best to repay you, even if the favor was merely something I didn't need. To them, it was a lifeline. Michael was surrounded by such people. I knew that when faced with the choice between Michael and me, most of them after some turmoil, would choose Michael, the person they grew up with. They probably knew about Chloe before I did, but no one told me. They might have been doing their best to persuade Michael, but then he became gravely ill. Michael died, and that was the end of it for him. But the living would forever be tormented by the choice they had to make between him and me. Michael watched the conversation between Eleanor and Jess. His eyes dimmed. He recalled the day he made his decision. His lifelong friends called him, one after another, asking about the situation. When they learned of his illness and his decision, they all cried and cursed him out. They were so conflicted. For them, Eleanor was nothing short of a savior. But Michael was equally important. Regardless of what decision they made, the moment they learned about Chloe and didn't immediately inform Eleanor, the outcome was sealed. Michael was flooded with overwhelming guilt. Regret surged like tidal waves, engulfing him, suffocating him. He had believed that the decision he made at the end of his life was solely his own, unconnected to others. He just wanted to live for himself one last time. But the reality was, too many people had been dragged into his mess. He was dead. He was fine. But the living still suffered. Michael became even more transparent. I thought he was about to vanish, but he didn't. He remained by my side. Maybe it was my imagination, but we both sensed that he was only one step away from leaving. But neither of us knew what that step was. Years flew by. Throughout these years, I couldn't escape Michael. He was constantly a part of my life. I cut ties with everyone in his circle. Sarah once came to me, tearfully calling me Ellie. She wanted to apologize. I told her I wasn't her Ellie anymore. Her brother had cheated. She said her relatives were all gone, and she only had me left. I said no. She still had one sister-in-law, the one her brother chose before he died. I showed no mercy. He hadn't shown me any mercy, either. And she hadn't shown me any mercy when she was talking to Chloe. Over the years, I developed several stable relationships, but the outcome was always inconclusive. Adult relationships often lead to marriage. I didn't want to manage another marriage, so I maintained relationships where marriage wasn't an option. I experienced the happiness other men brought me, different from the feelings Michael evoked in my youth. Each man offered a distinct feeling. I dated men who were my peers, older and younger. Each experience was unique. In every relationship, I was fulfilled and happy. When they ended, we maintained respect, drawing a dignified line under the relationship and treating each other with the utmost courtesy. Initially, I felt awkward because Michael was present. But later, due to my investment in the relationships and his increasingly translucent form, I learned to ignore him completely. He was like air, yet he would speak up often. He seemed desperate for me not to forget him. Even though he knew I couldn't hear him, he persisted in talking. He would constantly recall the past based on what he saw, as if he still lived entirely in memory, unwilling to step out or face the reality that I had moved on. In the beginning, he couldn't bear it. He would cry, begging me not to interact with other men. He would become resentful, wanting to snatch my phone or kill those men. But he was just a ghost. And this was reality. He couldn't become a powerful, vengeful spirit like in the movies. He wanted to run away, not wanting to see or accept any of it. But he couldn't escape. He was forced to remain by my side, watching my life unfold without him, watching me embrace others. He finally went mad. He was often incoherent, drifting around me, believing he wasn't dead yet. He thought we were still living our happy past life. But I always did things that shattered his illusions. He was constantly doing things that dragged himself back to the past. At one gathering, I encountered an unexpected person, a high school classmate whose name I barely remembered. "Hey, I heard you married Michael. I was abroad at the time and couldn't come back. You must have 2 kids by now." Haha. I was stunned. It had been so long since I heard his name from anyone else. Though Michael was with me every day, the name still felt somewhat foreign. Michael forced a smile. He replied, "No children." He answered earnestly, as if he were truly speaking to the man. I smiled and answered, "No, he died. We haven't had a relationship for a long time." The old classmate's smile froze, and he offered an awkward apology. I shook my head. After the gathering, Michael tugged at me, his hands passing through my body again and again. Unnoticed by him, he stubbornly said, "Why did you say I died? Why did you say we have no relationship?" "I'm here. I'm still here." I'm alive. And we're still together. Can you feel that we go everywhere together every day? I'm alive. Ellie, are you angry? Please, talk to me. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Just acknowledge me. Don't leave me alone. He repeated these words every day. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Forgive me. Don't leave me. He believed he was still alive, and that I was the one abandoning him. The car drove for a while. I suddenly told the driver to change course for the cemetery. Michael, who had been rambling incessantly, instantly fell silent. He stared blankly out the window. Michael had been dead for 5 years. I hadn't visited him, only arranging for the plot to be cleaned regularly. There was a fresh bouquet of flowers on his grave, placed there by someone else. I brought nothing, sitting on the ground, facing the smiling photo on his tombstone. His spirit stood directly behind me. Someone mentioned you today. I suddenly feel like you're a stranger, even though we were together for over a decade, and you've only been gone for 5 years. The photo on his tombstone looked quite young. We must have been very much in love back then. Over the years, I've dated a few people. Some ended because I broke it off, others because they did. Honestly, no relationship has matched the intensity of our youth, but I'm satisfied with the ending each man gave me. They all genuinely respected our time together. None of them, like you, gave me a flimsy excuse, ending things humiliatingly, making our relationship seem like something disgusting from the beginning. Michael's expression changed. We didn't break up. You're just angry. I'll make it up to you. I lowered my head. During the time you were with Chloe, I often wondered why I felt so much resentment, even though I didn't have much affection for you anymore. Michael was stunned. Are you kidding? Ellie, how could you not love me? Are you still angry? I'm sorry. I just didn't have those feelings anymore, I stated firmly, ignoring Michael's distress. When I was young, I also thought love lasted a lifetime. But slowly, I learned that feelings are cyclical. You briefly fell for Chloe, didn't you? Michael shook his head, refusing to accept my words. I didn't love Chloe. I don't know her. I didn't love her. Ellie, did you misunderstand something? You think I liked her. So you're lying and saying you don't love me anymore. You are the person who loves me most in the world. You can't stop loving me. If you do, how am I supposed to live? He reached out, trying to grab me, but his hand passed through my body. He froze. He was once again forced to accept a truth was dead. Over the years, he had been constantly cycling, believing he was alive, realizing his death, descending into breakdown, and then repeating the despair and regret. Later, I understood. My resentment toward you is simply because, even when the passion was gone, I still maintained the relationship out of respect for our shared past. And you, when your feelings faded, chose to cheat and seek new passion, making everything we shared into a complete joke. I calmly stated the facts. Michael collapsed, frantically reaching out, trying to cover my mouth. But it was all useless. He was forced to hear everything he didn't want to hear. I don't deny our past relationship, because it was beautiful and taught me a lot. You helped me break free from my father's control and showed him my strength. Even with your later infidelity, I still believe the Michael back then loved me, and that those early feelings were unparalleled. It's highly dramatic. You built the bridge that led me to you, and you also personally cut down our marriage. Sometimes I think, maybe I should have told you when my feelings faded, and we should have separated then. At least the end wouldn't have been so messy. Michael shook his head, horrified. No, don't. We can't separate. It was my fault. All my problems. It'll change. Don't leave me. I faced him directly. You didn't fight the illness. You chose to die. Right. Michael froze. Though he was only a spirit, he instantly felt a chill run down his spine, as if plunging into an ice cellar. The foggy memories were violently torn open. The few memories he had subconsciously suppressed. Michael's attending physician had told me years ago. Michael's cancer had been discovered early, but he refused treatment, deliberately dragging it out until the late stage to die. He could have survived, but he chose death. Why? He wanted to live for himself during his final days, and he wanted to make his infidelity justified. He didn't want to leave me, yet he didn't want to abandon his feelings for Chloe. But he knew choosing Chloe meant losing me forever, and possibly losing everyone else around him. He didn't want to shoulder such a risk. So, he made a profoundly stupid decision. He chose death. He gave up his life. At one point, I had some psychological issues and saw a therapist. While addressing my own problems, I subconsciously asked, why would someone choose death rather than a choice that others would consider insignificant? I couldn't understand Michael's decision to give up his life. In my view, if he wanted Chloe, he simply needed to discuss divorce with me. Yet, he chose the most extreme path. In fact, given enough time, everything dissipates. If you live long enough, there is nothing you cannot achieve or wait for. The therapist said, perhaps the seed of death was deeply rooted in him early on. The choice was just the excuse he found. You weren't responsible for yourself, and you weren't responsible for our relationship or anyone around you. I used to think he was highly responsible. Despite having a broken family, he took on the heavy burden of caring for his mother and sister at a young age. But perhaps he never wanted that responsibility. Life and kinship simply forced it upon him. After his parents died and his sister was raised, our relationship settled into a calm stability. The irresponsible side of him, buried deep in his heart, gradually surfaced when he decided to give up his life. He wasn't responsible for himself, and he didn't consider anyone around him. Therefore, all the suffering he endured was deserved. Michael, this is the first time I've come to see you in 5 years, and it will be the last. I will continue to move forward. My road is long, and you will gradually fade from my memory, becoming my past. His final obsession was me. If there is a next life, let's not meet again. No. Michael's body began to rapidly dissolve. His obsession had been shattered. He was about to disappear. He frantically reached for me, but it was futile. He regretted it. He truly regretted it. He wanted to live. He wanted to stay by Eleanor's side forever. He didn't want to leave. This shouldn't be the ending. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't leave me. Finally, realizing the outcome was inevitable, Michael's tear-filled eyes looked at me with ultimate clarity. You knew I was here all along, didn't you? I didn't reply, simply watching him disappear. I'm sorry. Until this moment, he was truly dead to me. For Michael, it was also true liberation. For him, perhaps only in genuine death could he escape the influence of his toxic childhood. But for me, living meant always finding the sunlight to dry the lingering dampness within. End. Epilogue. I saw Chloe Davis at a business banquet. She was nestled charmingly beside a man. When the man saw me enter, he patted her shoulder, stood up, and approached me with an ingratiating smile to greet me. The moment Chloe saw me, her smile evaporated. It was embarrassing for people she knew to see her in that state. I didn't spare her a glance and took my seat. Seeing me ignore her, Chloe's expression soured even more. Mr. He chuckled as he introduced Chloe to me. This is my assistant, Chloe Davis. And this is Ms. Hayes. Eleanor. At her young age, she's achieved something the rest of us old fellows can only dream of. Chloe smiled and greeted me. I simply acknowledged her with an MHM. I value efficiency, so I immediately started discussing business with Mr. He. Mostly he talked, and I listened. After all, he was the one offering up a significant portion of his profits to meet with me. Midway, I went to the restroom. To my surprise, Chloe followed me out. She blocked my path, her eyes gleaming with jealousy. Eleanor Hayes, you must be very proud, aren't you? If you hadn't taken my inheritance, I would be just as successful as you are now. I wouldn't be stuck serving as an assistant to some old man. Don't get cocky. Everything you have now is just the inheritance Michael left you. Otherwise, a woman like you couldn't achieve this level of success in 8 lifetimes. I, however, used my own means to get where I am. Ultimately, you're just lucky you married well. This time, I genuinely laughed. Talking to someone operating on a different wavelength. Even serious provocation sounds like barking. By your own means. Do you mean being a mistress? I tossed the paper towel into the trash bin. You don't need to come here to threaten me. We have no conflict of interest. Because the man you have to scramble to please is the man who has to grovel to me to win a business partnership. The real money you earn by trading your youth and looks is worthless in my presence. Chloe, what you need to update isn't your skills or looks, but the antiquated mindset you've always held. Take some time to discreetly look me up. The facts will shock you far more than you realize. I waved my hand and walked away. Also, go back and tell your boss that the cooperation is canceled. Tell him to keep his women in line. Wait. Chloe's face instantly went pale. As Mr. Yes, personal assistant. She knew better than anyone how much effort he had put into this deal. If he learned that she was the reason the cooperation failed, she would be ruined, if not physically harmed. She regretted her outburst. She shouldn't have given in to that little bit of resentment. She had assumed Eleanor had no power to make such a decision. Watching Eleanor get into her car and drive away without hesitation, Chloe's legs gave out, and her face turned ashen. She was finished.